Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another episode of Overbooked here on the channel. This is the series where I review every single book on my shelves because I need to get my family back. Today we are talking about K.S. Veloso's Chronicles of the Bitch Queen. I'm really hoping YouTube won't just demonetize this. We'll see. Some quick disclaimers before we start. I had a review copy sent to me of the first book. This is it here, The Wolf of Oren-Yaro. The second book, The Ikesal Falcon, I bought myself on ebook. And the third book, The Dragon of Ginseng, I got from the library. Regardless of where books come from, nobody's paying me to talk about books except my patrons, and all opinions are my own. I will keep this as spoiler-free as humanly possible while still talking about the whole series, but if you do want to go into this knowing absolutely nothing, pause the video, come back when you've read them, we'll talk then, and I will link the story graph down in the description so you can check out user-generated content warnings. This is an epic fantasy series that was K.S. Veloso's debut, and it released between 2017 and 2021. So this has been on my shelves for a good long while. It was about time that I finished off the series. K.S. Veloso is an author who currently lives in Canada, but I believe was born and raised in the Philippines and draws a lot of that into this series. They called me the Bitch Queen, the she-wolf, because I murdered a man and exiled my king the night before they crowned me. Born under the crumbling towers of her kingdom, Queen Talion was the shining jewel and legacy of the bloody War of the Wolves. It nearly tore her nation apart, but her arranged marriage to the son of a rival clan heralds peace. However, he suddenly disappears before their reign can begin, and the kingdom is fractured beyond repair. Years later, he sends a mysterious invitation to meet. Talion journeys across the sea in hopes of reconciling their past. An assassination attempt quickly dashes those dreams. Stranded in a land she doesn't know, with no idea whom she can trust, Talion will have to embrace her namesake. A wolf of Oren-Yaro is not tamed. I looked up some interviews with K.S. Veloso before I started sort of scripting up this video. I know, would you believe it? I loosely script them. And it was really interesting reading her perspective on what she wanted to write. And she was talking about how in 2017 it was a lot of discourse around strong female characters. And she wanted to write one that kind of drew on some of that matriarchal background from her heritage in the Philippines, as well as some other bits and bobs in there as well. And I thought it was really interesting viewing it from that perspective, because Talion is for sure a strong female character in a very literal sense. She is incredibly strong. She is good with a sword. The other thing she mentioned is making a statement on power and the things that keep people in power, and I thought that was really interesting, particularly in the context of fantasy, and this fantasy where actually a lot of it is to do with succession and heirs and legitimacy and all of this stuff. I thought that was a really interesting thing to explore through a fantasy novel of this kind. For me, I thought the framing of it was very intriguing in the sense of how the world and how this society responds to the challenges presented to Talion as a woman and how they would respond to them as a man and the unfairness of that. And I think this series and this book, the first book in particular, is very good at exposing that double standard, explicitly saying, hey, this is unfair and this attitude is unfair, and really accepting unfairness as a storytelling tool. And so often in books I find that to be a thing that really gets me on board with characters. I'm a person who hugely values fairness. It's one of my core values, and I think when things are unfair in books I get very upset, but in such a good way, in such a rich way, digging into the story kind of way. So let's talk about the series as a whole, as this kind of 3-book big arc. They are long books. The first book is only 400 pages. The last one was well over 600. I think that there are some great long-haul plot elements. It's definitely 3 distinct stories because there was such a big gap between them. They definitely round off, but less so than other series I have read. I felt that they were much better read as a trio and read back to back than if I had read them very separately. I think you need that continuity of emotional arc and that ability to remember who people are, because people pop up in every single book. It's not we have one book in one place, one book in another, and a third totally distinct story. It is definitely a full-scale narrative. That's something that I personally enjoy from time to time. I typically prefer very distinct books, but there was something very satisfying about reading this continuity through to the end. And with the fact that you meet the same characters again and again, that you experience sort of the same groups of people again and again, I found it made for a very fascinating character study, especially looking at character motivation and how character motivation can shift based on the circumstances you're in, people's attitudes towards Talion, towards her rule, towards her husband, towards the gods, towards everything shift dramatically in this series, and it always felt very true and very honest, but it makes for a good trilogy as a whole that you get to see that shift. And I think the different character studies and seeing where characters start and where they end would make a very cool little exercise to do. However, I don't think this is the best fantasy series in the universe, so sorry if you do think that. I think particularly in book 1, but kind of all the way through to the end, I felt like things happened to Talion more than she made things happen, and I think that was probably intentional. I don't think that's a case of, oh, this writing is bad because stuff happens to her. I think it's a showing that she is a product of these things that are going on. However, for me, it just made it feel like she lacked agency in a lot of ways that I didn't find particularly compelling. I think I just wanted a few more moments where she made choices and directed people and was a leader, and I didn't get that so much across all 3 books, and I think it dampens her character a little bit. I also think they are too long, all 3 of them, even the shortest book, even book 1, too long. Certainly book 3 could have done with being cut down a fair chunk. I think partly because it doesn't feel like there are that many threads to round up, so it just feels like you're slogging through portions of it that could go much faster, could be sort of montaged out a little bit more. And kind of the way that I know that, or the way that I know that was my experience, is that I don't have strong memories of moments within these books. I just have that sense of that was the journey that I went on and I ended up at the end, you know? If a book is paced well, I will remember distinct moments. I think some of this is going to come down to personal preference about your kind of, what you like to drive your fantasy narratives. For me, I like a little bit more of a character drive. I like a little bit more propulsion behind things than I think this story did. However, I do think that is a matter of personal preference. So I would say if you're going to pick this up, read book 1, see how you feel about it, and if you're really into it and you really want to know what happens, keep going with book 2 and 3. I do think they grow, I do think they build, however, it's not to the degree that I think if you didn't like book 1, you would definitely still like book 3. Also, this is such a sidebar, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the quality of the book itself, and to do with the writing, which is why I'm throwing it in right here at the end. If you get the UK paperback, the font is so small, and it's 600 pages, and the font is absolutely tiny. Get good lighting, get a magnifying glass, or get an ebook, is my suggestion. Quick battery change, and we're back. Other things you might want to read. I was thinking about books that deal with women in leadership, women trying to get people on the right track, that kind of thing. So I thought about The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke, which has a really great sense of nuance to its discussion of leadership and control. The other book, which I've maybe not mentioned for a few videos, is Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. This deals with the daughter of an emperor. I think particularly the later books in that series, a little bit of similarity there in some of the narrative. And the other thing that came up a bunch when I was looking up similar books, because that's what I do to make these videos, was the Winnowing Flame trilogy, which I hadn't really thought of as being super duper similar to this, but enough people have apparently read both and found them similar that I thought I would throw it out there. I don't think it's a case of if you loved this, you'll love the Winnowing Flame or vice versa, but I did think it was interesting that they put them together. Have you read these books? What did you think about them? Do you have a fantasy series that you're glad that you read all 3 of, but that you wouldn't necessarily recommend to other people? Because that's kind of where I'm at with this. I wouldn't 100% say you need to go and read it, but I'm really glad that I got to the end. But that might just be because I'm a completionist. If you're not a completionist, let me know. While you're down there answering that very long and convoluted question, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can also follow me on social media. You can come hang out on Discord where we have chill chats about books. I would like to say a huge thank you to all the ghosts who haunt me over on Patreon. They support the channel and in return get early access to videos, bonus content, live streams, and more. If you'd like to join their number, that's linked below as well. Thank you to you for watching. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. It's gonna be some bloopers now. For me, I thought the framing of it was very... I don't want to say interesting again. I always find needles on the floor whenever I'm filming. Sewing needles, nothing else.